Let's talk about one of the most remarkable and maybe overlooked leaders in ancient Jewish history, Queen Salome Alexandra. Now, get this. She was one of only two women to ever rule Judea on her own, and her reign from 76 to 67 BC is remembered as this incredible golden age of peace. But here's the twist, the central mystery of her entire story. The second she died, it's like a switch was flipped. A catastrophic civil war erupted that ended everything. So how on earth could 9 years of incredible peace and prosperity lead directly to total collapse and the end of Jewish independence? Well, to figure that out, you have to understand what she was up against from day one. So to really appreciate what Salome pulled off, we need to first paint a picture of the absolute chaos she inherited. It wasn't just a political mess. It was a kingdom literally tearing itself apart, all thanks to her late husband, the warrior king, Alexander Jannaeus. I mean, his reign was basically one long, brutal war. He left behind a nation that was completely shattered, broken by an internal conflict between two powerful factions who were at each other's throats. This was the fire that Salome had to somehow walk into and put out. And if you want to know just how brutal this conflict was, just look at this number. 800. That's how many Pharisees her own husband, the king, had crucified. This wasn't some political disagreement, you know? This was a deep, bloody-to-the-bone hatred that had split the entire nation right down the middle. So who were these groups? Well, on one side, you had the Pharisees. Think of them as the popular religious scholars, the ones who had the support of the everyday people. And on the other side, the Sadducees. They were the wealthy, priestly elite, the establishment. And their fight was for the very soul of the kingdom. So Salome steps into this absolute disaster. And what does she do? Does she continue her husband's fight? Nope. She pulls a complete 180. Her strategy was as brilliant as it was radical. She went all in on national reconciliation. So, how'd she do it? It was a genius three-part move. First, she invited all the exiled Pharisees to come home and become her top advisors, her husband's worst enemies. Then, she took the Sanhedrin, the High Council, which was mostly Pharisees, and made it the supreme authority in the land. Which leads to step 3. She completely flipped the power structure. The Sadducees, her husband's allies, were out. The Pharisees were in. It was a masterclass in peacemaking, but man, what a risky gamble. So, did the gamble pay off? Oh yeah, big time. The historian Josephus, writing about it later, tells us that under Salome, the people flourished. The civil wars just stopped. The economy boomed. And for 9 years, the kingdom had a kind of peace and prosperity that nobody had seen in a very, very long time. But don't for a second mistake this peace for weakness. Salome was way too smart for that. She knew peace had to be backed by strength, so she kept her husband's massive army, but, and this is the genius part, she didn't use it for conquest. She used it for deterrence. It secured the borders, protected trade, and basically sent a message to the entire region that said, don't even think about it. Okay, so everything seems to be going great. But here's where the story takes a tragic turn. Because for all her political genius, for all her military strength, there was one threat she just couldn't control, and it was brewing right inside her own palace. It was her two sons, and they were like night and day. The official heir, Hyrcanus, was a gentle, religious guy who sided with the Pharisees, just like his mother. Problem was, he wasn't really a strong leader. And then you had the younger brother, Aristobulus, the total opposite. Ambitious, charismatic, a real warrior, and he sided with the old guard, the sideline Sadducees. So you can see the problem, right? Her sons weren't just brothers with a rivalry. They were the living, breathing embodiment of the two warring factions. They were the Civil War, just waiting for the spark to ignite it all over again. And this rivalry, it was the fatal flaw that was destined to undo all of her incredible work. And the second she was gone, it all fell apart. I mean, the collapse wasn't slow. It was instantaneous and total, a great unraveling of everything she had so carefully built. It turns out those 9 years of peace were dangerously fragile. She was the only thing holding it all together, because while she had shifted the power, she hadn't erased the deep resentment of the Sadducees. So the moment she died in 67 BC, that delicate balance didn't just tip over, it absolutely shattered. And just look how fast it all went down. In 67 BC, Salome dies, and Aristobulus immediately launches his coup. By 65, you've got a foreign army invading to support the other brother. All this chaos gets the attention of the new superpower on the block, Rome. A year later, their general, Pompey, shows up to mediate. And by 63 BC, he wasn't mediating anything. He conquered Jerusalem and Jewish independence was over. A century of sovereignty gone in just 4 years. And let's be crystal clear about this. The Roman intervention wasn't some random invasion. It was purely opportunistic. Pompey saw this important kingdom literally tearing itself to pieces from the inside and just stepped right into the power vacuum that the brothers had created. Their personal fight for power handed their entire kingdom over to a foreign empire on a silver platter. Which brings us right back to that haunting question we started with. Salome Alexandra built this incredible legacy of peace, but was her strategy, empowering one faction so completely while sidelining another, was it always an unstable fix? Was her golden age doomed by its very design? Or could it have lasted if it wasn't for the destructive, selfish ambition of her own children? It's a powerful question about leadership, legacy, and a really tough lesson in just how fragile peace can be.